Alright, I'm starting a new video. There was a couple major updates that came out in the last week. I've been testing a few things and I wanted to go ahead and share it with everybody because what has happened in the game is probably going to bring one of the, right now as of October 30th, 2022, the best I've ever seen the graphics in VR for the HP Reverb with IL2 using an Nvidia card. So the latest drivers came out October 27th. It's drivers 526.47. Go ahead and open up my control panel because I want to go right into some of the major changes that have happened in this, and it is pretty significant. So right off the bat, you're going to notice a change in what you had available for you. So we're going to go ahead and select IL2 real quick. Don't know why that was not already listed. All right, there. And one of the things we're going to look at is right here on the image scaling. There, what this is the NIS, but they've now allowed this to be added. So let's say you're not using OpenXR toolkit, you could do this technically as a type of scaling right off the card. I haven't tested this yet. I'm leaving it off because I'm using it in the toolkit, so and we'll go from there. Number two, application controlled. Ambient occlusion is of course not something you can do. FXAA, this is something for flat screens, guys. We're not forcing it on the card. Again, gamma correction on. If you are using flat screen, you know, I don't know why you're watching this, but you would use that depending on what settings, MSAA or FXAA. Anti-aliasing mode, application controlled. Transparency off. Background application max frame off. CUDA GPUs all. Low latency mode. This is the new setting that I kind of had seen, didn't understand, and you know, if you Google it, it does work for VR. And what it's doing is when you have it in Ultra, it prioritizes the latency to full maximum queues frames to 1. In addition, the mode minimizes VSync latency. Well, this is traditionally for flat screen stuff, so I ignored it. Well, off of just decided I wanted to take a look and see if it did work. Well, it does, and here's what it does. Cleans up the game. It really cleans it up, guys. You're going to be blown away by this. So with that on, I haven't tried it with just on. I just left it on Ultra, but in Ultra it seemed to just be working. So I don't know if that's a default off. Like I said, well, I'll be doing more testing, but this is working, so I'm not going to go from there. Sometimes you get the right pick the first time. Monitor technology, you want fixed refresh. We're not even going to be using monitors. I'm going to go over that here in a minute. I highly recommend you should be shutting your monitor off if you're going to be doing VR. You really are killing your work in your card. All right, multi-frame rate, MFAA off. OpenGL, just leave that auto because there's no other real default there. Just set that to the GeForce. I don't like it to be auto just in case there's a glitch. And then power management maximum, refresh application control, texture is on. This one, if you're getting any issues for anti-aliasing issues, I don't know, maybe on a higher card, 3090 plus, you might turn that off. But in general, it doesn't seem to cause a problem in VR. Clamping. LOD negative bias. This is as close as I can explain it to the foveated rendering concept. When you're clamping it, it basically is forcing the sharpening imagery where you're focused versus all over. And it's kind of nice because now when you stare at the planes, it's crisp and clean. Really helps with shooting. My gunnery skill has gone up from there. So I will share that with everyone else just because it's good and it helps. So try both ways what you like, but a clamp is working the best. High quality, especially I have a 3080 Ti, so I'll show that in a second. Quality is high, quality on, texturing linear on, threaded on, triple buffer off because we're not using OpenGL. Vertical sync off, pre-render frames to 1. Yes, you don't need to run it at 2 anymore. I'm not doing that. It's much better. This I just set to auto. It's a default. We're not using Vulkan OpenGL preset methods I know of, but if we were somehow hidden in there, it's on auto. So those are the settings. Pretty much the same for DCS if you're a DCS fan. It's pretty awesome, guys. So those settings there alone were one of the first kickoffs. So get out of this, move over to toolkit. There was an upgrade to 1.2.0. You want to download that, get that updated, go through the whole thing. If you are new to toolkit, I do have another video, but just a quick one. You'll need to download there. Once you got that downloaded, you'll need to go to here, which is the Open Composite location. Scroll down a little bit, and now you can go to their link, which allows you to download it. You'll come halfway down. You'll see all this stuff here, guys, and you'll come down. You'll keep going. Pre-game installation. This is where you download the launcher. You get that up and going. Once you have the launcher up and going, you can go into games. I'll just do it off my desktop. Go into game. I have on my desktop already set up, so you'll load this, and what this allows you to do, it'll update your DLL. It also allows you to switch from Steam VR to Open Composite. That works pretty much all the time, except for I've heard people with Steam having some issues. If you're a Steam player, you have to download the DLLs based on your operating system. Once you got the DLL downloaded, you'll need to go into the game, which is located on, should be on your C drive. If it's not on your C drive, sorry to tell you, it will not work unless your entire system's on another drive, whatever you named it, but it must be your OS, everything on that to make it work for this, what I'm telling you about. Alright, so once you get into the game, you're going to go into your game folders, actually, so your bin folder, I'm sorry, bin game, and in here, you'll be able to put in the OpenXR API DLL. And this is the one that basically replaces the one that was in there. The latest was like 9.3. You'll also need to place it in your viewer file if you're going to replay any of the stuff in your VR goggles. Other than that, it doesn't affect anything else. It doesn't affect the flat screen mode when you switch back to flat screen if you decide to do some editing or something like I do. Not a problem. So yeah, everything works there, but that is the Steam workaround. For some reason it doesn't find it because of the way the Steam does it. And I mean, honestly, if I could show this, I have a standalone version of the game. So, and under a standalone version of the game, you have a couple different things when you launch the game, actually. It's here under bin game. See, what we have is what's the launcher. So you don't get this over at the Steam side. This is where we get our updates. This also allows us to go and enable VR. If you're having any problems in the game, you need to make sure, like let's say you just launch this and you go through everything and at the end you just keep getting it launching on the desktop. More than likely the enable VR is turned off. You can do that inside the game when the game is up and going. You just launch the game, get it up, go into your graphic settings and do it. And on the launcher, if you have the standalone from the website, you can do it right there. So that is a nice little benefit right there that you guys don't get, that we do for the standalone, but it does work for the Steam guys. Don't be afraid. If you try to download and do the standalone version, it won't work again because you won't have access to any of your stuff that you bought on Steam. You must be using the Steam launcher. If you're going to be doing the Steam launcher, you just load the Steam app. You get into the Steam app right here, and you'll be able to launch all your games right there. So usually you can do it there. You can even go up in here from within inside your goggles. You could just load with a desktop within the VR goggles, and then just go up in here and get your games, view your library, and then boom, just do the launcher like you normally would, and you'd hit play and it would launch the game. But you must have Windows, you must have your mixed reality up and running for that to occur once you make that switch from Steam. So you won't be using the Steam VR, you'll be using the Windows mixed reality only. You're cutting the third person out of all the mix. They go over all of this on their website on OpenXR Toolkit, so I don't want to get too deep into the whole concepts, but it does work, and it does improve frames, and it does give you much better, the best gameplay I have seen. And I'm pretty much, I believe, on the cutting edge of that when it comes to making sure we got our settings right. So if you got any things that can help, I always listen. But yeah, so there's that. So that's how you do all get that set up. Now I'm going to go ahead and go into the next one. You should be doing your Windows Store app. If you're new to my videos, this is important that you get in and check these. This is where you can make sure your OpenXR is updated from the Microsoft side. not the toolkit, which is a side project from one of their engineers. And you'll be able to go through and just check, oh, mixed reality was modified on 1022. So I know I was already updated, and I'm good to go. This is also interesting control panel. Last thing I want to talk about, if you are using the control panel, there is a performance bar that does pop up. So about 6 hours after I had done some changes, I forgot I hadn't done it, so I did another change. If you turn it off, you're going to have to redo the change, so I'm not going to do that. You want to make sure your power is turned to maximum, your temperature is set to maximum. And what this is going to allow you to do is get you a little bit of bump out of these cards. I'm running, like you said, a 3080 Ti from Nvidia, and it's a really great card. But with this little bump on there, I'm getting really smooth play, which we're going to go into here. This. So, under the settings for graphics, I'm going to go through and pop up some stuff here. One is I'm setting the detailed res to 4320. One of the reasons is if you were looking at the settings in the goggles, the headset display has two of them. Alright, so on the high end of the headset display, where does it show that? Audio speech. Maybe it's just because I'm not plugged in and turned on. It does show the maximum. I don't want best visual. Well, whatever. It shows it at 4320 by 2160. I think it doesn't show it here because I don't have my goggles on for. Never done that, so I don't know. So when you do look at that, that's important. I have found that it is a little bit nicer and cleaner at that setting. You can go down to 21 by 60, but that's half of that. But it's a little more blurry. It doesn't sharpen up. It does make all the text smaller, though. I will warn you there. This is just you can just put 9999 really if you want it in there. But it's just making that to be a 0 in a sense, because we want, this is full screen settings for if you're using flat screen monitor, and we want all of the bugs in the program that could cause any issues between it spitting it to our VR to be ignored. That's why I'm doing that. Old programming trick. Okay. All right. Last, to go through my settings, I'll post these up. These are just the OR is the settings of your VR goggles. So if you're, let's say you're running a 3080 Ti, guys, and you're trying to get the most out of it, you're probably going to be running your settings down 80%. These will automatically reduce if you're doing it into toolkit. So you could go into toolkit, reduce the from 100% down to 80% there under your main settings. So if you're on the toolkit here, let's go back to toolkit, and you look at the options. If you're under performance here, one of the options when you go into the advanced settings allows you to adjust the setting of the goggles up and down, just like you could do in OpenXR. But you don't want to do it in OpenXR. You want to only do it in Toolkit if you have Toolkit installed. So traditionally, you would have slid the bar up and down, say 80% or whatever you were going to do, right? So you could just drop it down. That's going to make it under render. But when you go into systems, basically go into systems and you're allowed to force that back up to 100%. So if you look at what they're talking about under features and compatibility and stuff like that, and you read through all their options, one of the ones, it does show on the website, wherever it went, they've made it better and bigger, but I haven't been through. Here it is. They do show on the website what I'm talking about. So if you launch the game in OpenXR, it goes through the runtime versus Steam. You can choose either one. This one, it just bypasses everything, because if you're going through Steam, you're going to run through the Steam, then through Windows Mixed Reality, back to the goggles. We're just skipping that part. We're going to go straight to the Windows Mixed Reality, straight to the goggles. That's where the performance bump is coming from. They go over all of that. So that's part of it and why we're talking about it. And you can see IL2 is performing some of the items. What's this? Yes, 3. Yeah, toolkit is working and the composite is working. So, and then when they talk about number 3, it does not support foveated rendering. That's why we're locking. In fact, You might want to say if you're a DCS, because I made a comment about that, I'm going to be turning mine to allowed and doing a test because I am using foveated rendering on DCS, and I don't know if that may be causing a confliction between locked and allowed. So, FYI, if you took that to heart. All right, so those are the things to look at there. I'm going to go into my VR here real quick and just launch the game because I want to show you the settings directly from within the game, and I'm probably going to lose my headset, and I hopefully we can hear. So I'm going to stop this real quick. Okay, now we're going to get into VR and take a look at what happens when you're in VR and how to launch the game. So all monitors would be off at this time. Technically they're not. I'm actually had to figure this out. It wasn't easy. All right, so to do the recording. So you hit your Windows key on your keyboard, and what that's going to do is that's going to bring up your option to bring up your desktop. So the monitors are all off. You're in your VR. You can bring up your desktop. Boom, you're in a nice little desktop. Now, you're not going to get these billions of windows like I'm seeing right here. That's because I'm broadcasting. So once you're in here, you're going to be able to come in. Make sure if you are using SRS, you already had it launched on the flat screen before you get into all of this because it is a little bit tricky. TeamSpeak is another one, but Discord seems about to launch if you forget. But don't just have them all up and going before you bother to get into the game. So standalone, guys, we would be doing this. We're going to use the launcher. So once I get back into where I'm in there, because I got to play with my glasses to get this all lined up to work. It's not easy. Alright, so there it is. So we're going to launch it. And what that's doing is I'm actually getting a kind of a double play because of the screen. So now the game's going to go ahead and load up. And mainly this is basically allowing you to see what I would see in the VR as it's all loading up, and you would kind of see that going at the same time. Back into the game. Alright, I need a center. Okay. Alright. So once you're in the game and you want to go do your settings, we're going to go through the controls for a lot of you. This might be your first roll, so I'm going to go pretty slow. Real big one, make sure you just go expert settings to yes. This is going to give you all your other options. Set the timeout to none. You can go F1 all the way over, F3 to the other side, F2 to move up and down, F1 over. We're going to go back to the front. We're going to start here. Okay, so overlay, pretty simple. You know, that shows your FPS counters. You know, I can turn all that on. We can take a look at it. I'm rocking 90 in here, of course, because I'm not doing anything. Upscaling, I'm using the FSR. Anisotropic, I'm not using this portion. That just allows you to kind of play with if you have Pimax or something. Don't really need it here, I would guess. This is what I was talking about. You guys could drop it down or up. You know, for the lowering, for you guys with the smaller, you know, this 2080, I would say would be the only card I know could run this, you know, barely. Sharpness, I'm running it at 100%. I've been going back and forth and playing with it, but since I've done this last, I haven't had to. Mid-map bias on to max at all. It has three options: off, conservative, and all. I'm using the all. It looks good. Don't use these other ones. This is going to obviously kill FPS in the game. This obviously is going to kill your FPS because you're telling it to, even if you mess with it at all. The high number is not a good number, just off is good. Alright, post-processing, think of this as just kind of changing the coloring in the game so you can see what the game would be without any of that, and then you can turn it on. The nice thing is you can still do world scale if you don't want to mess with the detail stuff. I like the detail stuff because I want to be able to use my sunglasses. True Night just kind of blows everything up. It doesn't look, it's not really that amazing or anything, but it's good for darkness. These are currently what I'm doing. The highlight is kind of like if the bloom, the sun's too high, or you're getting some artifacting, you can turn it down just a little bit. It does cut some of the brightness. Vibrance and shadow. Vibrance is going to make your eyes hurt. That's all I'm going to say. You can play with it, but whatever. I don't like it. Shadows make your blacks blacker. It's just darkens everything up. Alright, so system. Yes, I'm overriding because it seems to be cleaner when I do this. I don't know why. It's pretty easy to turn it on and off. Doesn't seem to cause me any issues. On seems better. don't use motion reprojection. I like +1 on the blues, 50s are the neutrals. I don't play with this. The zoom is a nightmare in this game. I don't recommend it. And that's about it. So I know it's fast, but you get to rewind in the YouTube world and play with it. So give it a try, guys. If you're the Steam ones, you're going to have to go into your into your settings, into the graphics, and make sure the VR is set. I will be posting a couple other different things up there, but with these settings, guys, the graphics in the game are unbelievable. The clarity is unbelievable. The smoothness is unbelievable. I am not running shadows on any major setting for the VR, and I'm not running the clouds on any major setting because I want smoothness at this point, and I'm enjoying that more than anything. Until I'm able to maybe get a 4090 and see if you can push it harder. I would love to hear back from some of you 4090 guys and see how much could you add on, how much shadows could you do. Now you can run a few shadow stuff, but the micro freezes to me are just not worth it. So that's where I'm at with that right now. The technology is getting better, but man, guys, I hope you enjoy this. Bye.